So it's Thursday, July the 3rd. So what's going on today? It's 4 p.m. Yoga is cancelled. So everyone has to go out tonight. Um, well, the first thing is I received a port extender. Now this is going to be a USB-C port extender, which means that one USB-C port on my MacBook Air is now four. I believe it's four. It's now four ports. So one port is four port, which means I have five ports available. It's lucky I'm so good at math, huh? So in the morning, like I looked at these projects, YouTube videos online, really kind of interesting agents that you can build, but not that difficult to make. For sure, much easier than doing a RAG project for a large set of documents. I'm still not sure how that RAG system works fully. So that's going to be an ongoing project. It's going to really take some time to figure all that out. Yeah, today I figured that the getting the data was working successfully. So the data is all prepped and prepared in a single file, like all merged into one file. And um, that file then has to be chunked and embedded, I believe, and stored in a vector database. And I wasn't sure which type of vector database would be suitable for a production system. Certainly the local Pinecone does not seem adequate. But I got some suggestions on that. I was using Data Lake, or I guess it's called Deep Lake. I don't really know, but I think it's called Deep Lake. But there's Data Lake and Deep Lake. I think Data Lake is like the tools, like the library that you use to work with it or something. I don't know. But yeah, it just wasn't working out. I couldn't get the packages to the library imports to work, and it just didn't seem like it was working. It was all flicking out on me. And I decided, there's not enough documentation to make this work as the first proof of concept, minimum viable product for a test run. It's just like it's taking too long. So I'm looking at some other libraries and tools, something that'll be much easier to do in Python. And, you know, so the problem I'm running into all the time is that these books and tutorials are out of date, and the libraries, um, they're either, I mean, they're having to use the old libraries or they don't work anymore. And that's a bit of a pain, I think. So I'm going to try to use some more up-to-date stuff. I found some information online that will possibly help me get through this whole understanding of the vector databases and how to use them and what I can do with them. Uh, so there's a bit of legwork to do there to get to the point where I have the database set up. But I think the other part is not quite as complicated, like setting up an LLM. I know how to do setting up an LLM so that you can work with the data. I know how to do fairly well. So I don't think there'll be too many problems with that. Although creating this thing for real, there's a whole lot of steps. There's a lot of extra intricacies. You might say nuances to get all that going, to get all that working together. And then something interesting happened. Uh, someone from the yoga wanted to post a playlist, but the issue was that it was actually multiple playlists from two different people. So there was, I don't remember how many playlists, there might have been 8 playlists. And I thought, I wonder if there's a way you could also make getting just a list of all the tracks in the playlists and having like a spreadsheet you could just link to it and grab all that data. So I copied all the links out of the iMessage, which is where the chat was. Would have been great if there was a tool to just grab those automatically without having to do that. But nevertheless, I went in there and copied the eight links. Not a tremendously huge task for sure. So I got the 8 links, put them into a spreadsheet, and then I used N8N and the Spotify node to find these playlists. And actually, the node that is needed is to get the track list for the playlist by ID. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, we have a trigger, and the trigger is just going to be a manual click to start it. The second node, or the second step, is going to be to go to Google Docs and pull that document with all the links in it. So it's a long list of, well, it's a short list of links. And then the next node is a coding node that goes through the links and just strips out the playlist ID, because that's all I actually need for the, that's the only thing I need for the playlist. And one of the playlists had a step where you had to join first. I think it was causing the automation to fail for a while. So what I did basically, I went on my phone, went to the links, clicked all the links, made sure I could get to the playlist. And one of them said, "You've been invited, click to accept." And I think that was throwing it off. But once I ironed that out, I got my list of URLs for the playlists. I parsed out the IDs for the playlists. Then I called the Spotify step to iterate over the playlist and get each list of tracks for each playlist. So whatever tracks are listed in that playlist, I get all that data back. Then I have a either I go directly to a spreadsheet node, or there might be an intermediate step where I filter out the data, but I don't think so. I think the next step was a what do you call it? A Google Docs append rows. And what that did was I went into the spreadsheet with the links, added a new spreadsheet, and put some headings over for the fields that I want. So I've got track title, track URL, the track ISRC code, the playlist name, I think the owner of the playlist as well, but I'm not 100% certain. And then, so I just, the final step is to write it all back out into a spreadsheet. So on the second sheet in the same Google Sheet document, I have a list of 188 songs that were pulled from these playlists. So that was an interesting project to do. Took a couple of hours, I think, longer than expected, because it was tricky to do some of the steps. Like some of the steps required coding. It wasn't like as straightforward as I thought it might be. But at the end of the day, like, I solved a problem with workflow automation, which is what I'm looking to do. So I guess that was a good outcome. So now I'm just going to close out and say it's Thursday. Probably not going to work tomorrow. It's July the 4th after all. Happy July the 4th to you. And next week I have a bunch of other tasks I want to pick up, and I'm going to continue with the rag. So that's it. That's the status for today.